Hey, what's going on, guys? Dawson here. Today I'm trying a little bit of a new format to bring some more SF to ops, trying to do some more personality breakdowns of these characters that, one, deserve more attention, and two, might have some confusing parts. So I'd like to bring more clarity and more proof, more sensory, if you would, if possible. So let me know if you enjoy, but today we're going to be covering Jim Carrey. You know him, you love him, you don't need an introduction. Actor and comedian. I think the only movie that I'd really seen from him was The Grinch, so I didn't really know it was Jim Carrey. But my mom knew him, my grandma knew him, and I'm just like, who is this Jim Carrey guy? But you can't help but hear about him everywhere. And also at the same time, you're getting the sense that maybe not everything's right in the head. I was walking in with a coworker one morning, and I think I made an offhand comment about purpose, about meaning or something, and she was just like, okay, Jim Carrey. And I was like, what'd I do? What'd I say? So early on, I got the sense that maybe Jim Carrey is a little off the rails. Maybe he's not all there. So, for context leading into this typing, if you were just to pick out one instant, one moment from Carrey, you're going to get a completely different person. If you pick out from when he was 20, 40, 10 years ago when he hit depression versus today, you're going to see entirely different people in each of those because he has changed or grown over time. He starts off, he's coming all crazy, and now at the end of his life, he's a little bit more abstract, a little bit more illuminati talk. Okay, what's that about? So you have to be careful and you have to download his whole life story in order to understand who Jim Carrey is. So first, we're going to start off with some popular guesses for Carrey. According to the greater community of MBTI and everyone else, Jim Carrey, according to 1,000 people on the internet, is either an ENFP or an ENTP. Now, mind you, I'm sure all of these people have spent 12 to 16 million hours downloading Carrey and didn't just watch a single comedy or a single skit from him and go, hey, I know what type he is. I'm sure they did their research, obviously. So could he possibly be one of those types? I've seen a lot of ENTPs, unfortunately, and they all kind of end up being the same. Just so much religion talk, so much data, so much missing information, just all this technical talk. And it's just the labels, the pronouns, the paperwork. It's just like, give me a break, you know? They all work at the Daily Wire. I've seen a lot of the standard ENTPs, or at least a lot of the sleep last ones. So is he one of those? I highly doubt it, but you know what? I'll keep that in mind. Could he be an ENFP? Okay, well, I haven't seen a lot of ENFPs. There's a lot that are in comedy. There are a lot that are in acting. Some of them are pretty wild and crazy. So could he be? I don't know. I suppose it's possible. So let's keep that in mind. But now let's check our visual biases and see, okay, does Jim Carrey remind me of anyone? So kind of looking at Jim Carrey here, honestly, when I was looking through some of these, I was like, I don't really recognize this. He has a look that I haven't seen very often. I don't see a lot of people of these type, or maybe I just haven't downloaded this sort of type. You might be able to make an argument that he has more angles to his face. Maybe more of the jawline looks what you'd see with the TE and FI kind of axis. I'm not really sure until I got to some of his younger photos. What you're gonna see here is what is double feminine? Just this, what is this like cutesy energy here? Like you're lucky that I have some facial hair because otherwise I would look like I'm 16, but it's just like you just can't, like, why is he so cutesy? Like you just want to pinch it. Like this is what I have to deal with every day. Sorry. Anyway, so yes, potentially, possibly more on the feminine side of things. But as I was looking through some of his older photos, I was starting to notice, hey, okay, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Steve-O. Looks a bit like him. Or in some, I was seeing maybe a little bit of Steve Irwin, but otherwise not seeing a whole lot. So if I were going in to type Jim Carrey, I'd be going, okay, reminds me of maybe more of a feminine ESFP, maybe dialed up. So that's my starting bias. Cool. But when we first go into typing, you have to have an opening move. What is your first chess move on the board? So we're going to start small. Is he or is he not Tony Robbins? It's kind of like the free bingo card, the free bingo move or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Tony Robbins is over the top, energetic, in your face, 48-hour seminars, gung-ho, extrovert, extrovert, extrovert. So if I were to go and type Elon Musk, it wouldn't take me but 30 minutes to go, okay, this is in no way, shape, or form Tony Robbins by any means. And that way I can kind of cross one off the board and go, all right, well, there's a freebie. And then you can kind of move on from there. So with Jim Carrey, is he or is he not Tony Robbins?
I want to unleash the financial giant within you. I know my size is alarming, but do not fear me. You will realize I am a friendly giant, much like Herman Munster, or that retarded fellow, one of Mice and Men. Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of Fran Tarkington.
Okay, never mind. All right, scratch that. So we're gonna have to start over on that one. Ignore that coin for now. So let's start with some easy coins first. So if you were to watch Jim Carrey yourself, the first thing I think you're gonna see is that the guy is an extrovert. Well, he's dancing. He's all over the place. Extrovert, done. Wait a second. Sometimes you'll have some of the play last that will come on the screen, and in all the interviews, they're super mopey, they're drained, they're disappearing for a year, no one can find them, but then they come on screen and they're just explosive with this weird dance energy. So you have to be able to track Jim Carrey over his lifespan. His 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60. Is he an introvert or is he an extrovert? So the first thing to see is, what does everyone else have to say about Jim Carrey?
That is what I have to work with every day. Thank you, guys. This means a ton. Before he implodes, die! By the way, I was wondering, Rob Thomas said something about who are the people? Are the people actually here that voted for this? Is there someone down here that voted for this? Who? You? Stand up! Stand up! Come here! Hurry, come down here! Come here! Stand right here. Okay, stand right here. Face these men. Now say thank you. These guys did it for us. The people.
The people. Okay, great, right? But listen, it's like, this is who I have to deal with every single day. He's all over the place. He's grabbing the tribe. He's bringing them down. Say thank you. A little bit of controlling the tribe, right? This guy is kind of on a lot. But let's get some more cross checks. What does Jim Carrey find weird?
And the only thing that I can think of on a talk show that has never been done is not to talk.
Sort of take a step back.
Right. Well, just what, I mean, if we could do the little experiment, it'd be really cool.
What are you talking about here?
Can we do it? Can we experiment with this? I mean, what it would be? Well, I think it could be groundbreaking television. I really do.
Where you don't talk or I don't talk?
None of us talk.
Neither of us talk.
None of us talk. You don't talk, I don't talk. We just sit here. And the crowd, everybody, no one makes a sound or anything. It's as if this isn't happening. We're just sitting in a park, all by ourselves. The band doesn't play. Nobody does anything. Okay. Nobody speaks to each other. Right. And now, from now on, like in the next minute, when people tune in all across America, they're going to see the freakiest television show they ever saw, and they're live.
Right.
It's like, why is this so funny? Why is this so weird? Ooh, imagine if we were quiet or if we were silent for so long. But you just see the guy goes on and on and on explaining what it would be like to be quiet, you know? It's like, why are all the sleep lasts so obsessed with this quiet, with this silence? Like Craig Ferguson does this bit every single time on his interviews. Oh, do you fancy an awkward pause? Like, do you recognize that most of the actors that come on here don't talk, they don't say anything, you have to kick them. They are the physical embodiment of the awkward pause. And yet Jim Carrey's going, ooh, and he's talking the whole way through it, explaining what the awkward pause is before he gets to it. It takes him like an entire minute. Like, okay, good grief. But ultimately, when you are seeing introvert versus extrovert, you should see, what is Jim Carrey leaning on? What is he familiar with? And what is new for him?
You know, I truly believe, especially if you've made it, especially if you've become a big thing, that you owe it to people to get the fuck out of their faces. Mm-hmm. You know, to get away and not be in their face all the time. No. And I've, you know, there's been several times now in my life or career where I got to a certain level and I went, okay, now I'm going to get away. I'm going to like just go away for a couple of years. Yeah. It's kind of like wanting to, you know, sever my right arm to learn how to write with my left. You know, so people get pissed off. They go, what the fuck are you doing? You're not doing any movies. What the hell's wrong with you? I'm off learning how to write with the left. And then when I do, and I got a new trick, then I come back and I sew this one back on. And then they get kind of both, you know, then I can show them something different as well as the old thing that I still don't mind doing.
Yeah, right? Like everyone's going, hey, do your extrovert, do your funny thing, get on the stage and dance for us. And he's going, hey, wait a second, I'm gonna hide away, and I'm gonna learn something new, and I'm gonna come back out with that with a new skill, and I'll still do the dance, I'll still do the old thing that you're used to, what I'm familiar with, my right arm, but I'm gonna come back with a little bit more introverted energy. And what you're gonna see is that the more that he goes into his introverted world, the more he comes back stronger and stronger with some of those pieces. And we'll be covering a little bit of that later on as well. So you kind of see, okay, he is familiar, he is leaning on this extrovert world, and it's weird whenever he goes into the introverted world. So now the next coin that I think is going to be easier for you to see is going to be OE, which is either SE or NE. The need for change, for something new, for different opportunities, for chaos. I mean, he is the source of constant chaos, right? So obviously, he's OE. Done. Okay, well, great. We still need to prove what is he leaning on and what is new for him, what is unfamiliar.
But do you ever worry about the day that the tank will run dry?
No, because I have this removable arm for my next part. No, it's a wooden leg. Hey, you didn't know, did you? I don't know. I just think there's as long as I keep growing, keep learning things, you know, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I guess it's when you just kind of sit back and rest on what got you there, you know, or whatever. I mean, I saw a lot of comics in the Comedy Store do 10 years doing the same act, but that, you know, could never happen to me because I would shoot myself in the head if I did it, you know, for that long. You know, so I mean, it's a necessity for me to change. So I don't know whether it'll be a good change or an acceptable one, but I will change.
Right, and that's what you want to do, I think. I certainly don't want to play it safe my whole life. You know, I don't want to. I think the danger is that you start patronizing your audience. You know, you start to try to see, well, okay, well, this worked, so I better stick with this. You know, and then no growth happens at all. You know, and you know whether something is a success or not, you have to take the chance of you know, losing a few people.
It's like, yeah, he's going, hey, I need to change. I need something new. I always have to mix it up. If I do the same thing for years, I would rather die. He is looking for new opportunities rather than just sticking with what's familiar and what works. It's time to move on. So now that we know that he's OE, we have to kind of tackle a big one here. Is this SE or is this NE? Is this extroverted sensing, where he's going, hey, chaos in the environment, I'm scanning the environment, looking for new props, looking for new things to use? Or is this going to be more of the abstract chaos, the possibilities, the connections, kind of this more jumping around in the abstract land? Now, if you've truly downloaded Jim Carrey, what you're going to see is that he's a master of physical comedy. He's always grabbing the nearest thing, whether it's a mug, whether it's a stool, whether it's chairs or stairs. Like, he's constantly throwing himself over things, just grabbing whatever he can and using it. It's almost like watching slapstick humor, whether it's Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry or something like that. And it's just like, you just grab whatever you can and you hit someone over the head with it. That's never not funny, right? He seems to be working, or his creativity seems to be working on the physical landscape rather than the abstract landscape. But we still need to prove it. So here's some clips.
Okay. In 3, 2, 1.
Do I have anything in my teeth? It was pretty early on, but I guess early teens. I've always been goofy, but that wasn't something I tried to do. You know, I was a spaz basically. I used to think physically a lot when I was a kid. You know, like I'd see it was like the Roadrunner cartoons. You know, when the coyote makes one of those maps with the little dotted line. You know, it's can I jump that table? You know, that's what I used to think about. You know, while I was talking to people, I was like, can I jump the table? Things like that cross through my mind. You know, it's just, you know, could I do a backflip? You know, and so that just always stuck with me.
It wasn't long before I started acting up. You know, people would come over to the house and they'd be greeted by a 7-year-old throwing himself down a large flight of stairs. They would say, "What happened?" And I would say, "I don't know. Let's check the replay." I'd go back to the top of the stairs and come back down in slow motion.
You have to admit, the guy is funny. Like, he is really good at it. He's so good at the physical comedy and just like his facial expressions. Like, that's just what he's known for. And he's just so good at it. So you'll see that Jim Carrey is constantly experimenting in the sensor, in the physical realm, looking for new physical things that he can use. Now, Jim Carrey is commonly compared to Robin Williams. Now, surprise, surprise, they end up being similar types. They're both super extroverted. They're on all the time. They're always having to people please. So you're seeing that these guys have a lot of similarities, But they are different in the way that they express their comedy. Where Jim is more physical, Robin is a bit more abstract because he has the extroverted intuition. So he's constantly just jumping around with no physical reference point. One moment he's Amish, or he's German, or it's some sexual innuendo. He's a vampire, he's French. Like, wait, what's going on here? Like, how in the world are you coming up with all these ideas out of nowhere? Like, you don't need a physical prop when you have a whole theater in your mind. Now, one of my favorite interviewers is Craig Ferguson. He's a dialed up ENFP, and he's just constantly dancing around in the intuition with the extroverted intuition. And it makes for such a great cross-check because you have so many celebrities that they just can't keep up. He's just too fast. Even Robert Downey Jr., he's pretty quick-witted, he's fast on his feet, and he even gets a little sensitive when you bring up his past and his drug issues. But Craig just jumps around the conversation and he ties it all together so well that even RDJ is going,
see how he tied it all together?
Tied it all together there.
That's the sign of a brilliant mind.
And for a while, I thought Craig just can't be beat. That was until Robin Williams appeared on the show, and he just like one-upped him completely. Like they're almost the exact same type, Robin being all the way cranked up TENE version of Craig, ENFP and ESTJ. Like they are just so fast, and you get to see how they make just the weirdest connections.
That's a therapeutic moment.
Yeah, that's right. So you do want to stay French. Now I'm a Scottish hairdresser therapist. That's what you've got lovely skin.
French Scottish therapists. They were crazy, it's crazy. Oh, yeah, no, we can be two vampires in rehab. Hey, wait, we can call it type AAA. Hi, my name's Vlad. I'm powerless over darkness.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I poop my pants and get arrested.
When I have a blackout, it's not a bad thing. If I go Shanghai, it's bad. Or Chris Walken is a Chinese Scottish gangster.
No, weird. Christopher Walken, Chinese Scottish gangster. Oh, yours, man. That's ahead of me.
This accent's strange. I don't know how. This is the strangest accent I've ever done.
Like, how do they even make those connections? They're just so fast and off the cuff. Like, where do you even get there? So what you're gonna see is that Jim Carrey and Robin Williams are very similar, but one is SE and one is NE. And I think you're gonna be able to see the difference if you really look at it. But of course, we have to play the game of the cross-checks. So if we are seeing extroverted sensing, we should also be seeing introverted intuition. But for the time being, we are gonna put a pin there, and we're gonna go back to explore his introverted world later. So next, we're going to be covering DE versus DI. DE being TE or FE, and DI being FI or TI. So is Jim Carrey's story going, I have to people please for everyone, I'm looking at the tribe, I'm watching the tribe, I know their perspective, but wait a second, who am I, and what's my identity, and who's Jim Carrey? And then he's learning to lean into his identity. Or is it going to be, well, I know me, I know what I want, I know my standards. Hey, what does the tribe want? What do they want from me? Are they against me? What's going on here? I can't really. And then you're learning to, hey, I need to give back to the tribe, and I'm learning to see more of the tribe's perspective. So are we going to see more DE, or are we going to see more DI? Now, in these clips that I'm going to show you, watch his state. It's going to be a little bit different than his usual comedy.
I think I wasn't necessarily seen as much or as intently as I wanted to be when I was a kid. I had a job, at least in my own mind, and that was to make my mother feel better. She was kind of very ill in many ways, and so it was to make her feel better. And I think ultimately, I imitated my father. He was a very funny guy. But also, I felt some need, and maybe, I don't know whether they created it or I created it, but I felt the need to make them feel that their life was worthwhile, that they did something special just by the very fact that they brought me into the world. Yeah. So from a very young age, I wanted to convince them that I was a miracle. And then I wanted to convince the world that I was a miracle. And now I want to convince the world that I'm just like them. It was definitely an important moment in the process where I found myself subjugating Jim Carrey for Andy Kaufman and Tony Clifton, and then at the end of it looking for Jim Carrey again and having trouble finding him. And at a certain point I realized, hey, wait a second, if it's so easy to lose Jim Carrey, who the hell is Jim Carrey? And there was this Spielbergian kind of rack focus at that point where, like Roy Scheider on the beach, where I was kind of watching from another place.
Yeah, you're just seeing that he has to be on all the time, that he's constantly people-pleasing and going, I want them to feel special. Like I'm looking at everyone else and then eventually going, wait, who am I? What's my identity? Who is Jim Carrey? And he's kind of lost himself in the process. I also found it interesting that apparently at the age of 10, he had 120 character impressions. Like, how much are you watching The Tribe in order to have 120 impressions? Like, I don't think I have any. I don't even think I could do an impression of my parents if I wanted to. I'm just not watching The Tribe. Like, I know myself, I know my perspective, but I'm not paying attention to everyone else that much. Like, how in the world do you have that many? So what you are gonna see is that he is DE over DI. All right, so now that we've covered some of his main functions here, it's time to tackle the big coin. Is Jim Carrey an observer or is he a decider? If he's an observer, he's gonna have OE at the top, and he's gonna be relatively balanced in the middle. Their perspective, my identity, sure, whatever, we can work it out. The real problem is gonna be the missing information. Hey, let's look behind the curtain, let's reveal the secrets, what's going on here, what are they not telling us? It's the government's fault, and it's gonna be a problem on the missing information realm. Or if he's a decider, he's gonna have DE at the top, and so he's gonna be relatively balanced in the middle. A little bit of control, a little bit of chaos, it's fine, whatever. But my identity and who am I, and are we all just characters, and the tribe, my perspective, and having a lot of trouble balancing out the judgment and the decisions. Now, mind you, you're gonna hear some Illuminati talk from Jim Carrey, but oftentimes this comes in the form of a bit. He doesn't take it so seriously. It's like, okay, I can't type you based off that. But imagine that you're on Hawaii and you receive a missile alert that you're going to die in 10 minutes. How would you respond? Let's find out.
Interesting story behind this cover. It's called Memoirs of Misinformation. And what happened there was there was a missile alert in Hawaii a little while back, and I was in Hawaii.
Was this the thing where they texted everybody?
Well, it was an alarm on the television. It was crazy, and my assistant Linda, who lives on the other side of the island, called me crying. She called me crying and said, "We have 10 minutes left, Chief, and what should we do? The missiles are going to land." So that's my face when I believe that I have 10 minutes left to live. That's the face. And it was more, the feeling was, wow, that's kind of weird. What a funny way for it to end. You know, and I went into this time of the last 10 minutes thinking she said, should we get in the car? Should we all try to meet up? And I said, I don't want to die in my car. And then I sat down, and this overwhelming sense of peace came over me. And I started to go through a list of gratitude for my life, for everything that had happened. And about 2 minutes left to go, I thought I'll just close my eyes. And then I got the information that it wasn't real. But I know what it's going to be like in the last 10 minutes if I was to know that it was going to end. So it's a kind of a unique place to be, you know, to be able to sit back and go, okay, there's actually a state of calm.
Wait a second, you're not panicking, you're not all over the place, you're not running out in the street naked like what Steve-O would be doing. No, instead I have a sense of calm and peace, and I guess this is it. Wait a second. Welcome to the world of the double observer. It just isn't real. Last year, we had an F4 tornado that was barreling straight for us. It demolished the town in front of us, and it was coming for us. And it was about 9 o'clock at night, and that's my bedtime, and I'm tired, and nothing gets in the way of my sleep, because I'm a sleep first kind of guy, if you know what I mean. And so I was just like, I'm just gonna go to bed. I don't really care. I just turned the lights off, the sirens were going off. I was like, not a big deal, whatever, it'll be fine. Eventually, I did go downstairs with all of the people, but there's another storm that kind of came alongside it and disrupted the tornado, and it dissipated. It moved it slightly over from where I was, and then it dissipated outside of town. But we had an F4 coming for us, and I could have just slept on through it, because it's just not real. The tornado isn't real, and the missile alert isn't real to the double observer, to the decider. But what you are going to see with Jim Carrey is that he has been stuck on the same issue for 20 years.
I am at the top of the mountain, and I was, and the only one I hadn't freed was myself. And that's when my search for identity deepened. I wondered who I'd be without my fame. Who would I be if I said things that people didn't want to hear? Or if I defied their expectations of me? But you guys are so ahead of the game. You already know who you are. And that peace that we're after, lies somewhere beyond personality, beyond the perception of others, beyond invention and disguise, even beyond effort itself. You can join the game, fight the wars, play with form all you want, but to find real peace, you have to let the armor go. Your need for acceptance can make you invisible in this world. Don't let anything stand in the way of the light that shines through this form. Risk being seen in all of your glory.
You're also going to see that Jim Carrey is a bit of a painter. And so it leads you to question, well, what is he painting about? Wait a second, he's painting about the guy at the top. Who's the one in charge? Who's the leader? Like, he's making all these political statements using people. Jim Carrey isn't playing the missing information game. He's playing the identity game. You and me. My identity. You already know who you are, but I didn't know who I am, and you need to be seen. Everyone should be seen. Like, why are we playing this weird decider game? So Jim Carrey is going to be a decider. So now it's time to take a deep dive into Jim Carrey's inner world in order to get some of the cross checks. So what you'll see is that he was jumping on stage in his 20s, he was dancing through life, he hit depression in his 50s, and now he's coming out on the other side of it, a bit more abstract, a bit more woo-woo, more intuitive talk, would you say? But what you're gonna see is that whenever Jim comes out with this more NF talk, it comes out in a bit of a weird way. It doesn't come out as natural as maybe some of his other performances. So I'd like you to watch this video and see if you can kind of catch the state change here.
Took us 8 years to write it, and it is an absurdist treatment of my life and persona and fame, and it is designed to end the world for you.
Great.
If only for a moment. If only for a moment, because I think deep down inside all of us, all we really seek is our own absence.
Thinker.
And it's funny.
Like, watch that again.
All we really seek is our own absence.
Thinker.
And it's funny.
And it's our own absence. And he drifts off, he's disappearing, like, hey, where'd you go? And he's like, oh, and it's funny. Hey, wait, there's the Jim Carrey we know and love. How about you just stick to doing that? Stick to being funny, to being outgoing, to dancing on stage. Like, you're not supposed to say all these things, that we're all characters. Instead, you're supposed to say, all of your dreams can come true. Keep going with the Hollywood stuff, okay? And do what you're good at. Go be the character that we know you to be, okay, bud? But now let's dive into Carrey's art studio and see what his introverted world is really like.
You can tell what I love by the color of the paintings. You can tell.
Like, this one's really interesting. Just the sense of self again, and the fragments of the self are being taken away. You're even seeing, like, just right here on the chest, the unfinished abandonment of self. And I think that's almost like a prison on his chest too. Just really, really interesting. Really good artist, by the way.
You can tell my inner life by the darkness in some of them, and you can tell what I want from the brightness in some of them. You know, the bottom line with all of this, whether it's performance or it's art or it's sculpture, is love. We want to show ourselves and have that be accepted. I love being alive, and the art is the evidence of that.
Yeah, like, what a stark contrast from more of his physical and chaotic performances where he's all over the place, he's taking up the stage, and now he's more quiet, he's more introverted, and he's a little bit more abstract. He's painting and he's talking about things that aren't real, all these pieces. And now you're hearing a lot more love. Now there's one painting of his that really struck me. And here we're looking for the cross-check of NI, of introverted intuition. Because if you're seeing OE, you should be seeing the fear of control, of being limited, of being stuck, of being put in a box. But you're gonna see instead that with extroverted sensing, it's gonna have the demon NI, which is more of this abstract control. It's hardly even real. It's this dome, it's the illusion of reality. It's the puppet master that's controlling things behind the scenes. It's being limited by stigma. It's all these controlling forces that aren't real. So Jim Carrey has this painting here that says something along the lines of, he is freed from the prison of becoming. The prison of becoming? That's not a real prison. That's not a real sense of control. Huh, interesting. You also hear him say freedom from concern, freedom from wearing a mask. The kind of control that he's talking about and that he's afraid of isn't really real. And this is demon NI, this control that is abstract. So we are seeing SE and demon NI. Now, one of the things that really irritated me, I was trying to go after his feeling function here, and I apparently had no clue who Barbara Walters was. And apparently she's notorious for being such a dastardly interviewer. Like, she brought Courtney Love on, I think, a little over a year after Kurt Cobain passed, and she just rakes her through the coals.
Ever do drugs in front of your child?
My God. Did the fans blame you for his death? And she's just crying throughout the whole thing, and it's just like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? Kind of for some context for this clip, is that Jim Carrey, his father passed away about 6 months prior. And so now he's appearing on Jay Leno, about to appear on Barbara Walters.
Let me ask you about being interviewed by Barbara now.
Barbara Walters is going to interview me, for the post-Oscar show.
Do you think she'll be able to make you cry? Because that's her big thing, is they're trying to get you to cry.
This is what I'm nervous about. I don't want to get on there and blubber like Patrick Swayze,
Yeah.
I mean, well, did you see him? You see him? He's like, I don't want to look like that. I'm sorry. I just don't. So I've been trying to build up my toughness. I've been trying to build up my resistance to emotion.
The questions that she would ask you.
Go ahead. Try me out.
I see. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. Jim, let's talk about your childhood for a moment. I imagine this was an extremely painful time for you.
Oh, man. Here I go. I promised myself I was going to.
Jim, at the height of everything, your father died.
Mm-hmm.
Did your father know that you'd made this kind of success?
Yeah.
What did it mean to him?
I don't think he knew the magnitude of it, but he realized, that I had reached my goal, that little thing in my pocket was realized.
That
He knew that I had made it. He knew that I had made it, and in fact, I put the check in with him in the casket.
Oh, Jim.
Here we go.
I said I wasn't going to make you cry.
Damn you.
I promised I wouldn't make you cry.
Yeah. Most of the time, I don't have to deal with that. With FI, it's like, hey, my emotions are under control, they're guarded, they're protected, like no one's gonna be able to pull them, so I don't really have to worry about anything. But whenever you have someone like Barbara Walters on here, and whether she is or not, she's playing the role of the FE, of the extroverted feeling. Let us share some of your emotions. I need to poke and prod and get a reaction out of you for television here. And so all of a sudden, it's almost like you have vultures circling around you, especially for like FI. I'm sure some others feel like that too, whatever. But it's almost like, hey, whoa, wait a second. These emotions are personal. Like, you can't just pull these out of here. Like, no, these are mine. No, you can't have them. And so you have someone like Jim Carrey coming on here. How are you going to get him? He's joking, he's dancing around. Like, you're never going to be able to get him in a serious state. But all of a sudden, his father passes away. And it's like, ooh, you got an open wound right there that we can use. And if I just press that button, I can get the reaction that I need from you. He's backed up in a corner, and now he's going, I need to prepare, I need to charge, I need to protect my emotional state. I know I see her coming, I see this threat looming, and it's like, you're not getting to this. And eventually she kind of does. And it's like, really? So what you're going to see if you're watching Jim Carrey, I think the easiest coins, again, are going to be Extrovert, OE. This is the need for chaos and opportunities. And if you watch closely, it is going to be physical opportunities, working with things in the sensory and the physical realm. Play. So you're going to see DE, people pleasing, always on for others. And the big thing is my identity and who am I. It's a lot of people talk, a lot of identity talk. You're gonna see him cranked all the way up. He is controlling the tribe. Every interviewer, he just like drags and he's going, no, we're doing my thing now. He is just dialed all the way up and the sleep is coming later. So one of the things I had trouble proving was, is Jim Carrey a thinker? Is he TE? I don't know. I wasn't really seeing a whole lot of that. I wasn't seeing FE. I was seeing DE and FI. So, yellow and blue makes green. And of course, I recognize that one of my weaknesses is I usually can't see TE. Anytime that I'm typing someone, it's going, oh, that's FI, that's not FI, or it's going, oh wait, that's FI, and that's also DE. Oh, wait a second, TE. So I'm always having to do that kind of math there. So someone else might be able to come in and be like, oh, this is obviously TE, I see it everywhere. But you'd probably want to look for more of, okay, what is his relationship like working with others? How is he exchanging the work? So keep an eye out for that. So what you're seeing from Jim Carrey is that this is a dialed up ENTJ, TESE, play, blast, consume, sleep, and double feminine. So he's going to be very movable, very flexible, and that seems to be what everyone else around him is noticing as well. That his face is like silly putty, and he just has so much movability and flexibility that really helps him in his comedy. But that also means is that his inner world is going to be masculine. It's going to be rock hard, it's going to be solid. So you're having the NI in the FI. Every time that he goes into his inner world, he just comes out and those come back stronger and stronger each time. This is the pathway. We're all characters. None of this is real. And he's going, depression. It's okay. I've leaned into it and I'm using it now. Yeah, the feelings are like the weather. They come and they go. He's no longer as afraid of that last animal, or that last function rather, of his identity. Now, Jim Carrey hasn't been social typed. Now, if I were to give my best guess for his social, I would say my bias coming into this was that he was going to be a 4, like a lot of the other comedians. And looking at him, I feel like that's still kind of the case. He seems to be more friendly, kind of not as much on the flexy side of things. And whenever he is coming out with the flex, it seems to be over the top. It seems to be a bit weird, a bit awkward, like he's not really taking the flex seriously.
It's like it's changed the way I laugh at parties.
Oh, really?
You know, I used to go, that's really funny. You know, now I go, oh!
That's really good. And as well, he seems to be specializing. He's been doing comedy for 40 years, he's been acting forever, maybe a little bit of directing, but then you look and he's been doing art for the last 10 years, and he's doing a rather good job at that. So you see that he's doing comedy and he's doing art, and he seems to be sticking to those few areas. He's not really jumping around to different realms. But what's most interesting is that Jim Carrey is a crazy extrovert, and he's tapping out early in life. The guy's like 60-something. You have Donald Trump, Arnold, Sylvester Stallone, Tony Robbins. All these guys are like in their late 70s, and they're ramping up. They're still going. And you're like, how are you still going in your late 70s? Whereas for Jim, he's going, yeah, I'm kind of done. I'd like to retire. I'd like to go back to the art studio and do my thing. I'd just like to retreat from everything. He's not taking on more and more responsibilities, and he's not, running with the scam. He's tapping out early. Huh. Interesting. So what I would say, Jim Carrey may or may not be a number 4. But overall, when you're looking at Jim Carrey's life, when looking at this whole typing procedure, you should be seeing the ExxJ Story. What's funny is that Jim Carrey has been compared to Robin Williams, and they are one coin off, SE versus NE. And so what you're gonna see with Robin Williams is that he was coming up and he was afraid to be himself as a child. And so he'd make up all of these impressions, he would impersonate all of these characters, sound familiar, and he would hide behind each one of them. And every time he was asked a serious question in an interview, he would just go hide behind a different character. A Frenchman, an Australian, George Bush, like all these different people in order to not have to answer for himself. And what you're gonna see is that at the end of his life, kind of when his disease started taking over, he lost his ability to jump around as easily. And so it made it a lot harder for him, and it was harder for him to hide behind these characters. And so he would end every day crying in his co-star's arms saying, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm just not me. I'm not funny anymore. I don't know what's going on. And then even after he passed, his wife came out and said Robin was experiencing himself disintegrate. He was losing himself. What's really interesting is that these two characters that have been compared to each other countless times have a similar, if not like almost the same NI, the same life story. I was wearing a mask, I was doing impressions for others, and I'm going, I've lost myself. But at least what you see with Jim Carrey is that he's made it onto the other side of things, and he's going, I don't have to people please anymore. You kind of see him throughout his life, and he goes from being just very bright-eyed, cheery-eyed, just the whole world is filled with possibilities. And you just see that he's weathered over time, and he's gone, I'm kind of done with this. So despite all the Illuminati talk, we get to see someone who has made it to the other side of the hero's journey, who has learned that the savior addiction to the tribe and to people-pleasing and dancing around for everyone, it just isn't real, and it doesn't matter.
It's called high visibility. It's about picking up the light and daring to be seen. Here's the tricky part. Everyone is attracted to the light. The party host up at the top, who thinks unconsciousness is bliss and is always offering to drink from the bottles that empty you. Misery below her. Despises the light, can't stand when you're doing well, wishes you nothing but the worst. The Queen of Diamonds, under him, needs a king to build her house of cards. And the hollow one down bottom there will cling to your leg and say, please don't leave me behind, for I have abandoned myself. Even those who are closest to you and most in love with you, the people you love most in the world, will find clarity confronting at times.
Isn't that just the hero's journey for all of us?